All right, I'm recording this just so everybody knows. All right. Thanks for coming back.
Did I have a choice? I don't know that I had a choice. All right, I think we ended G and we were starting to go into H.
Correct.
So it looks like I had comments from both staff and Schmacko in this item. So whoever wants to go first. And I'm going to take the background off.
All right.
So staff had recommended, I don't know if Samri's here, she had some additional wording here. So I'm going to just paste this onto the back.
All right. Damon, you want to? Oh, there. Oh, go ahead, Samrit.
Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute myself. So we, yeah, so we just provided some examples about what what could be included here, but happy to take any comments here.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Hey, thanks. So throughout this document, we've gotten rid of examples because they're not really appropriate in regulations unless they're absolutely needed. And so we would feel much more comfortable getting rid of them.
Yeah, we have definitely done that.
In this case, the A speaks for itself. You don't
Right.
need the examples for it to understand it.
So Chuck, should I delete it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
being consistent with our approach throughout.
All right. And then I think Schmacko offered an alternative to B.
Hey, it's Damon. I'm not sure if Herb's on yet as well, but I think our alternative, first of all, reflects upon, again, the cost-effective nature of what we think we should be doing as part of our analyses. But also, I think trying to target, and this is where I could use Herb's input if he's on, but I'm not sure if he's on, but trying to hone in on sort of what's really relevant here, which was to try to focus as opposed to the broader system, to just the feeder and substation aspects of the system. I'm not sure if Herb's on.
I think he's here, but I'm not sure if he's. I think he's on. I'm not sure if he's here.
Hey, David, I'm just walking back in the office. I have a
There you go.
distribution issue to take care of. I apologize. I missed the conversation. I just heard my name come in. Can you?
Yeah, no worries. We're focused on, what is this, section H of,
Yeah.
I apologize. It's on page 9. I think so. But what's on the screen? So we had proposed a couple edits here that are shown in pink, I guess, or fuchsia or some color scheme. And I think I was just trying to explain, we tried to narrow it down to focus in on feeder and substation capacity constraints as opposed to the broader system.
Yeah, that's constraint. That's correct. So non-wire solutions really they would tailor themselves to capacity needs, and they would typically be applied at a substation or feeder level. So the words that we put in there is, one, it's got to be cost effective. So for example, if we're replacing deteriorated obsolete facilities, one of the inherent things that would come out of that would be inherent capacity increase. So we would compare that versus a non-wire solution. But if we had to be facilities replaced due to age, then a non-wire solution wouldn't quite fit the bill. But it's basically related to just feeder or substation capacity. It wouldn't be little tap lines or anything else, and it would have to be cost effective. That's why we added those words in.
All right. Yep, go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, I just want to flag, and an issue with the broad use of the term cost effectiveness because we haven't really nailed down, except for the UBCA, what we mean by cost effective. In other words, what are the criteria? There is a place somewhere in here that asks utilities to establish their, or at least define their criteria for cost effectiveness. And we've run into this problem, for example, with community solar, where the benefit cost analysis approach used by the utilities doesn't include some of the benefits that are attributable and largely agreed upon, but not by all the utilities, to DERs. And if those attributes aren't included in the cost benefit analysis, then the cost effectiveness becomes a different calculation. So I'm just a little worried about this wide use of the term cost effective without defining what we mean more clearly, or somehow linking it to what the utilities are required to do. I think in the plan development section.
By the way, I just shared the definition of cost effective in the energy storage regs in the chat.
Right, and that reflects, I think, the vagueness that I'm concerned about, because projected benefits that are greater than projected costs. What was happening with community solar was that some of the projected benefits were not agreed upon, and the utilities weren't including them in their cost benefit analysis. So it depends. If you don't, maybe, I don't know what the commission's role in this is. When someone says something's not cost effective, because the cost benefit analysis says that some of the benefits that some people think are benefits, we don't think are benefits. That's the way it's played out with community solar, and it's been a problem.
But that's why you have a UBCA.
Exactly.
UBCA has very specific tests for what should be incorporated, and they've already, so, and the commission.
That's my point. Shouldn't we be referring to that somehow?
Well, we refer to the UBCA, in the regs,
Right.
We could add a definition of cost effective, but I would want to not stray from what the commission's already approved.
I mean, you could probably put some overarching thing, at the very beginning, talking about cost effectiveness in the UBCA. Just a thought.
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to dwell down that path anymore because
Okay.
we did have UBCA referred to.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
and I
It's
hesitate.
referred to in specific places, but it's not generally included as, what do we mean by cost effective?
Oh,
Okay.
Can I suggest
Yeah.
that,
Go ahead, Andrea.
sorry, that what Al's really focused on is the outcome of the BCA and that working group. Cost effective, the words cost effective will not change. You're still going to be using cost effective. And the things that you're focused on, Al, is really like, what does that mean in terms of the BCA? But that's going to be decided elsewhere. And then whatever the decision there is, will be how we understand quote unquote cost effectiveness in these regulations. And again, like that may change over time. So I think you just want to leave cost effective as is. It allows it to change with the UBCA should they change it again. But we're not going to put in, we're not going to be installing non-wires alternatives that aren't cost effective because we won't be able to recover from them, right? We'll be told in a rate case it was an imprudent investment and we can't recover. So like cost effectiveness is really important to everything we invest in, and that's how we decide how to do like one or the other. And again, that what a cost effective means will be determined by the BCA that comes out of that other group, which will satisfy your concern. But I think it's in that other group.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. We'll go to Damon, then Andy.
Yeah, without being overly repetitive, I think that the bottom line is, from our perspective, the commission has already defined cost effectiveness in terms of linking it to the uniform cost benefit analysis. And it does, and to Andrea's point, I mean, it has evolved over time. I mean, I can recall cost effectiveness certainly as it was discussed when we all deployed our AMI systems, and that was one standard. And really, it's the benefit stream that has evolved over time. I mean, frankly, we have concerns, the cooperative has concerns about the cost effectiveness test because it encourages overbuilding as a result of too many benefits being thrown in the mix. And that's why I keep emphasizing the notion of affordability here, because we are very much concerned that there will be investments that make it through the cost effectiveness test, but do not properly consider affordability. So I don't think we need to overly define cost effectiveness now. The commission has already done so, and it will continue to refine that definition over time, no doubt.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir. Andy.
Yeah, thanks. I think I found, John, the part you're looking for, which is actually in the screen and identify below, or screen and evaluate, which is where it says cost effectiveness shall be used and references the DER UBCA when available, because we had that conversation last time about, well, it's not there yet. I would make the comment here in section H, identify possible solutions. Like, we should not be constraining to say electric companies shall consider feasible, cost effective, if applicable. It's kind of one of those things of, like Al said, it's like a trifecta of possible reasons not to examine possible alternatives. And I think in the direction of the legislature to sort of be creative towards deploying more non-wire solutions, at minimum, in the identification of possible alternates, you don't want to put that screen on there. That should come afterwards, because a lot of learning can happen in what makes a project not cost effective that could inform future evolution of that discussion. Like, for example, I've seen a lot of assumptions put in place at the early stages of like microgrid development around ongoing O&M costs, which are kind of unknown, and also can scale, can decrease with deployment. So it's really helpful for stakeholders, I think, to weigh in on, oh, this non-wires is not screening positive because of XYZ factors. And I just worry if it's kind of only included in the identification of possible solutions, if it's already deemed like either feasible or cost effective, I think that's going to limit the learnings that can come from this.
Do we need I mean, assuming we go with SMECO's edits, do we need, if applicable, even there?
Well, we already have feasible here.
Right. Consider feasible cost effective. I just don't think it adds anything. That's just me.
So I'm going to accept the rest of them, and I'm just going to do a time check because we really need to move on.
All right.
Al or Dr. Bartlett, do you want to mention your comment here on solutions?
Dr. Bartlett, if you're
Yeah,
talking, you can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, I'm actually tracking in the document that I marked up, but so yeah, I guess it's, this is the section where the wording struck me as strange, because it basically makes it sound like for a either for a plant for the whole planning cycle itself, or for a scenario which is a multifactorial, it's like all of the things that are supposed to happen, that there is a solution or a possible solution. It's in this, both in I and J, the same issue comes up. So choose a solution for a scenario. I mean, scenarios are much more complicated. The sections we just talked about, constraint identification and possible solutions, we're dealing with it constraint by constraint. Here it makes it sound like there's a solution to a whole scenario. It just doesn't seem.
So if I get rid of this, does that solve it?
What are you getting rid of? Hold on, I'm sorry. What are you leaving?
No,
The highlighted area.
Yeah.
Utility shall
Probably.
screen possible solutions for each plant.
That's probably right. And in the one below as well.
Sorry, what change did we just make? I didn't catch that.
I'm going to delete the highlighted area. Just so utility shall screen possible solutions. for each
That's
plan.
fine.
Shall screen and evaluate possible. I wouldn't take out the and evaluate.
Yeah,
Possible.
that's in the title.
Okay.
All right.
And the same would be true in J.
Okay, so
So I would push back a little there because we're going to choose either a solution or multiple solutions. I mean, it may not be that multiple solutions are what is best for the system. It may be a single solution. That leaves the flexibility for us to choose the best solution or solutions to the constraint issue. Things are not always multiple solutions. We evaluate multiple solutions, but we don't always end up with multiple solutions. It may be one solution.
But the context here, Andrea, is the plan or the scenario, something much bigger than an individual constraint. That's why.
For each solution,
Single
though,
solution
for
doesn't
each
make sense.
scenario, Al, it says a utility shall choose a solution or solutions for each scenario. For a scenario, it's maybe a single solution that is warranted. That's my point. And publish a plan for each planning cycle. So, you know, there shouldn't be an expectation about how many solutions will be appropriate, because in our engineering judgment, we have to choose whether it's a solution or solutions that are appropriate for each scenario. And to force us to have multiple solutions may force us to do something that's not good for the system or not good for the customers.
It's not forcing you to have multiple solutions, but a scenario is a multi-year projection of where the electricity system is going, which would encompass all of the constraints that were potentially identified, all of the locational benefit analyses that might be done. I don't conceive of a single solution to a scenario that's reaching out 3 or 5 years and talking about what needs to be done to improve the grid.
So I'm not understanding why you don't want to leave us the flexibility of a solution or solutions. I mean, what you're doing is limiting us by removing solution. And we should have the flexibility if it turns out that we have this fantastic solution that meets multi-year needs. Yes, it probably won't happen now, but what if it did? And the regulations say we have to have multiple solutions. So I think we should just leave it. It provides us the flexibility that we need.
Chuck, you want to make a final decision here?
Does J1 kind of maybe address that when it says utilities shall present their rationale for solution selection? I mean, that seems to me like it could be one or more than one.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So by leaving it the way it is in I, and in J, you can choose a solution or solutions. Then I think maybe we get it both ways. I was just concerned that a solution for a whole scenario, I find extremely unlikely. Scenarios of multi-year, multifactorial projection. That's all.
And if it never happens, we've got nothing lost by leaving it in there and leaving it flexible.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. I mean, possible solutions under I could include assessing multiple solutions and coming up with, in J, a single solution if there really is one. Anyway, we shouldn't spend a lot of time on it, but
Yeah, I'm hoping we can just move on because I think it's a minor
Yeah, I agree.
item. And really, I think the only thing we're left with in this section is Schmecka really didn't like number 2 because it mentions rate case filings. I can tell you the commissioners really want this process to support rate cases, meaning they don't want to have utilities coming in with rate cases that don't align with your plans. And if there are differences, they really want to see a reconciliation. So I personally feel like this is covered in the order, and that's why it's in here.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your thought process, John. And at the same time, at the end of the day, rate cases are about looking back in time, with the exception of multi-year plans, which we do not participate in and will never participate in, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so to do a reconciliation as part of a rate case is out of place, at least with precedent before this commission. And the utilities are going to file a rate case and provide sufficient testimony and supporting evidence to justify that their investments should be put into rates and recovered from customers. If they don't do that, they will not be successful. And so to mandate this in regulation is at odds with at least how things have been treated in the past. And we would have concerns with this. We don't have the staff.
I would like,
It is consistent with what the commission said, though.
but with the point, we probably shouldn't have in here. It should probably be the opposite, because electric system plans should provide explanations for projects that don't reconcile with rate case filings, because you're talking about it in the plan. In the rate case, you can do the opposite. So we probably got this backwards here.
Well, it's the way the order reads. It says future rate case filings should provide explanations for projects that don't reconcile with the system plans and the annual utility filings in the final DSP work group plan.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's backwards. I think it's just, it's tracking sort of what has been done recently in multi-year cases,
Right.
With a reconciliation process that again, from a cooperative perspective, we have never done a reconciliation. We never plan to do a multi-year case, even if they're permitted, at least at this point in time. And so to do a reconciliation would be pretty taxing on resources. That's really challenging. But at the same time, we will have to put engineering testimony into that case to justify any investments that will be recovered from our customer members. And so this seems limiting, frankly, and not necessary.
No, I get it, but it's like I said, and I think you agreed that it's consistent with what the commission said, although it is a change. They can always clarify it going forward if they just mean it for multi-year rate plans.
Yeah, I think you can make I would just suggest we move on, because this is something that will come up at the hearing.
John, is it possible to include multi-year rate plan in that sentence? Would that address Smecco's concern and your concerns?
It would address your concerns, Herb, but it wouldn't be consistent with the commission's order.
Okay.
But I hear you.
All right, can we move on?
I think we can.
All right, so by the way, we did 5. Let me check. 6 is really nothing. So this is the last section, and I think it's going to take us all the next 2 hours to get through it. So we had a suggestion from I guess this is from Exelon, since it's gray.
Yeah.
And I think its intent is in replacing number 3.
Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, John, I know that you're tired and we've all been doing this for 3 years, but so, but this is our last chance to get it right.
No, we'll get through it.
It skipped over a recommendation we made under L in section 03, assessing results. And I note that, again, I wasn't able to be at the last meeting. The March 26th version of regulations had some specific requirements here under assessing results. It said, a utility shall assess the results of their electric system plans as follows. A, assess actual performance versus assumptions. B, assess actual performance versus goals and objectives. And C, assess lessons learned and make changes to future planning assumptions if appropriate. That language was there and somehow it disappeared in the April 9th version. What I had suggested was, at a minimum, under assess results, there'd be a section 2 that says this assessment shall include the determination of progress as documented by the metrics established in the cycle's final electric system plan. In other words, basically, the assessment of results shall include the use of the metrics that we finally get around to establishing to measure that progress in terms of the things that were established as metrics for the plan. So, and it can be each utility's plan, but the other option is to go back to the specific language that was in the March 26th version. But there needs to be some kind of concrete reporting here beyond lessons learned, which is a narrative function, which is throughout the history of program management turns out to be pretty useless.
I feel like, we had
I'd have to go back and look
discussion
at
at the last
the
meeting.
language.
We had a long conversation on this the last time and ended up here.
Yep.
Right.
So
I,
can we not rehash it?
I would agree. I think we're at a point now where, this is starting to be circular and maybe we'll just have to leave it for stakeholder comments on the proposed regs, because we did have that discussion last time we met.
That language had been dropped out. You discussed that.
Yes. It wasn't drafter's error.
I'll just flag the fact that we're ending up with essentially no accountability. There's nothing concrete to point to say whether things were accomplished or not. I'm not sure that's what the commission really wants.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's go to the next section, John.
All right. So we had Exelon actually recommended these changes here. Actually, the second item is number 4 here. I probably should have left 4 up here like this. So they were replacing 3 and 4 with this.
Yeah, John, I'll speak to it. I think, we were obviously big thing, just trying to keep consistency within the regulation in terms of terminology between electric system plan, preliminary electric system plan, annual plan updates, and then also just keeping consistency with the commission order and what we had already documented in the regulation section.
Okay.
Did we say that the utilities weren't going to file their plans with the commission?
No, they should file them with the commission.
Yeah,
That's not consistent throughout, though.
okay.
Yeah, and I think as the original straw proposal was developed, there was filing what eventually became the preliminary electric system plan before the technical conference, and then utilities filing any response to feedback. But what we had come to during the previous process wasn't necessarily filing any electric system plan after that, and there wasn't any direction in the commission towards that either. And like Andrea said, wasn't consistent throughout this.
Well, I could tell you that, and it's just stated in one of the earlier orders, the commission stated specifically that they will create a docket for each company, and that's where all the filings related to that company should go. So I took that to be pretty concrete direction. And that's why it was written this way.
Yeah, I don't really know how to get around that.
Yeah.
I think then as we go, we'll just have to make sure that the end of this process reflects that consistently, because like Andrea said, I think at least as the regulation's written right now, the last steps in this section don't reflect that. So there would just have to be that consistency.
All right, well, you can point that out when we get to it.
All right.
So I'm going to put this back in. Actually, first I'm going to. Actually, it's already in here.
Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm appreciating the discussion here. So as I read the original language, it was about, and trying to align it to the new definitions that we have in play now, publishing the preliminary plan such that stakeholders have access to it, so that'll start the stakeholder feedback process. And then ultimately we will file the final plan, which is after that whole process. Is that still the intent? I'm getting confused, I think, by the newly proposed language. I just want to make sure I'm tracking it right. So maybe it's just the term. Maybe it's just we're not using preliminary electric system plan here yet. Is that what's something's throwing me off? But I thought the intent was to just stipulate how the preliminary plan was disseminated for purposes of eliciting feedback, and then the ultimate plan will be filed with the commission, because that's the hard plan. That's the actual plan.
Right. Well, how do you notify the stakeholders that it's going to be up on your website?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had no problem with filing notice or whatever. Right. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what.
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking off the top of my head here, but
sure. We can file a notice as to availability, or we can file the plan. I don't know if it matters. It's already published. It's public, so it's just
right. If it's just a question of terminology, I'm sure we can clean that up, whether it's a preliminary plan or their draft plan.
Right. But is that the intent here? I mean, the intent is just to stipulate how the preliminary plan, the draft plan, whatever we want to call it, is disseminated to stakeholders for purposes of getting feedback. And then we'll file the final plan, which will be at the end of that whole process. Is that right?
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
All right. Well, based on that, then I should.
And if we call it preliminary or draft, I mean, does that fix it?
Preliminary is a defined term, though.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to have to change it throughout. Remember, we define preliminary plan, and
Right.
we use that throughout. So if you're going to suddenly change it to draft.
Oh, no. I'm not saying we should.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
need to be consistent
if we change it to preliminary, does that solve the issue or solve an issue?
I think so, but maybe I'm missing something. I mean, I think it's just adding preliminary, tracking the defined term in number 3, right? I guess I'm
right. Correct.
I'm sorry, isn't this section distinct from the section about how preliminary plans and so on are developed and published as part of the plan development stakeholder involvement process, which comes in a section further down. This one is just about the actual filing of the the formal annual. There is an annual report. There's an update, and there's at the end of the cycle a new plan that goes through the whole preliminary plan section. That comes further on. I thought this was just about filing the actual document, the official documents each year or each cycle.
I think you're correct, Al, that A is specific to the electric system plan. So separating it from the preliminary, A was or is intended to be specific to the electric system plan with items on the preliminary plan later on.
All right, so are we fine with just publish a preliminary electric system plan? All right. Why don't we just do that, John?
Well, shall we be specific here? File their final plans?
I think given how many plans and updates we have, we need to use the specific names of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So
Okay.
should I just say electric system plan? Is this correct?
It is and it
I
isn't.
say final.
It doesn't say their preliminary plans will be filed with the commission.
Yeah, I think we should have said final somewhere.
Right, but this is kind of like back where we were. So they don't file their preliminary plan, but they file their final,
Right.
which is what you were saying the commission did not want, correct?
No, I think the commission expects that there to be a docket assigned to each
Sure,
electric.
right. So it should
All the plans.
so should it be and also file their preliminary and final system plan?
Hey, John, there's not a defined final electric system plan. It's just electric system plan. So can we get rid of final? And it's defined as, remember, it's defined as the last plan.
Yeah, well, I added final, just because.
But the way that reads is the preliminary doesn't have to be filed.
Yeah,
I guess, given that the preliminary is what would be leading up to the technical conference, I would think
it needs to be
of
filed.
any of the plans, that would be the one that would have to be filed.
Yeah. I think, I don't like publish, I like file everywhere.
Well, I think the publish and file, at least as I think we were thinking about, is differentiating between publishing to the website, right? If that's the only place a company is putting it versus, to your point, John, filing it in the docket. So was trying not to use publish for anything that was going in the docket.
Yeah, I think the commission took the electric company website publishing from your.
All right, why don't we make three? Okay, we'll do publish the preliminary electric system plan on the electric company's websites, and shall also file a copy with the commission, period. And then maybe make a 4 saying electric companies shall file their electric system plan with the commission, or I guess you gotta add in that docket crap. Sorry, stuff.
Is that what you wanted?
Just a suggestion. I don't know if that makes things better or worse.
I think it's a good suggestion. It seems to me that the quote unquote final, the electric system plan also would need to be on the website. Otherwise, the only thing that's there is what you enter the discussion with, but not what you finish with. I mean, I just repeat what's in 3
Right.
and 4.
All right, so I'll get rid of this since we've already.
Yeah.
And we have Schmecko had some comments that might be useful about
Right.
confidentiality.
Right. But Al was saying that 4 should be consistent so that they file it and publish it on the website. There you
Why
go.
don't we just, since they're both doing the same thing, why don't we just have 3 say both those documents? And then leave it at that, right?
I'll be okay with that.
I think it makes it less confusing.
I'm all for less confusing. Okay.
Can I just say these plans with the commission?
Yes.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
don't have to get too cute and we take this out
There we go.
and then I've added a 5.
Go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, I have no problem with 5. I just question, since we've now gone to the trouble of defining stakeholders as interveners, or at least the ones that get to be parties, did they have, to what extent do interveners have access to some of the material that's being redacted or withheld under 5 here?
They'd have to sign an NDA just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Other
And
than
so
I think
that's
staff and OPC do not have to.
That's in addition to going through the process of filing to be interveners.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then interveners would need to take the additional step if they were interested in and they were given permission to sign a non-disclosure agreement to get the full information. Okay,
Right.
just wondering how it worked.
Go ahead, Damon.
I was just going to say yes to Dr. Bartlett, and just so he understands, I mean, this is standard practice, and even OPC's consultants have to sign a protective order agreement before accessing that confidential information. OPC and staff, there are statutory restrictions on them, but not so for consultants and third parties and other intervening parties. So that's standard operating procedure. So,
Okay,
but yes.
yeah, thanks. Just
Yes.
wanted to get clear. Okay.
Oh, do we need security?
Yeah, just wondering. I mean, confidential information, if it's requiring a common NDA, I don't want to push the issue. I'm not familiar with Maryland's process on
Right.
that, but it just seemed a new phrase that was repeated twice in that clause and not included in the definitions. Just wanted to
Yeah,
flag it.
because you've got your sensitive and then you've got your CEII information.
Why don't we just say redact all confidential information and treat as appropriate or something like that, because there are legal and internal policy treatments for different levels of confidentiality.
Yeah.
So get rid of, just say confidential everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm still, I think my working groups are all getting kind of melded together, but I think this was the working group.
This is the best one though, right?
It is. I trust. Well,
Wait a minute.
Did you, John? Sorry. But this is the one where we took, I think, the stakeholder definition. We had the intervener definition, right?
Right. Yeah, we did have an issue with that. And
Yeah.
there's some comments and some concerns on that.
And because those concerns still exist, I just want to make sure when we add this new language that we are careful how we word it so it still falls within those parameters. And particularly since we have CEII information that really shouldn't be in anyone's hands other than people who are trying to be part of the system, either developers or ours. It shouldn't be in random people's hands by law. I think we need to have be very careful that we cover those terms correctly. And I don't know that I can do it right now in this, but I'm just putting it out there that we need to be very careful how we word it.
Understood. Damon.
I'm not sure I have a lot more to say. And Andre, I built this definition sort of upon some of your comments from prior working group sessions. I do think so. CEII has a specific definition in the context of really NERC policies and standards and on the transmission. So I think we just need to be careful. CEII has one connotation, but I don't want to limit it to CEI. And that's why I think security sensitive is sort of an important term, although as long as everybody appreciates that confidential sort of can encompass that. Great.
I think it does.
I do agree that I think where Andre was going is just because you're an intervening party does not necessarily mean you will be entitled to all access to all confidential information. There could be a subset within there that is just truly security sensitive, that someone may have a right to intervene, truly have a right to be authorized as such by the commission, but still not be gained access to the composition of our security fencing for our substations or whatever. You don't need, most people don't need to know that. So I just want to make sure we're transparent in that.
No, absolutely. I think that makes sense and it's reasonable.
And if any stakeholder that has been granted leave to intervene, has an issue, they can always
Complain that they're not getting
the commission, issue a motion to compel or whatever.
Right.
They would have to, discuss their good cause for needing the information. Okay. All right. So we get to the next edits.
Staff
added a whole raft of stuff here. Let me see if I can get it all on one page, though. So staff recommended an alternative to B. And I'm going to take away the cyan so you can see there.
I can go through the comments, John. So on D, we just did a little bit of wordsmithing. We already have like electric companies shall in 1. So just deleted that and included description of. E, 1 speaks to, B speaks to the plan and then the annual updates. There's no distinction. So we added description of a system constraints and any updates to the plan. So just to cover what should be included in the plan and then as well as the annual updates.
Okay, Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Does anybody have a?
I think that one was meant to get to, you're not going to restate constraints that have already been stated. This is just updating since that. So like the updates are supposed to update the electric system plan. And I believe that point was meant to say, we're just going to update. We're not going to restate everything that was already in the electric system plan, if that makes sense.
So sort of like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So EI just added a rationale for the change for any new programs that are introduced that were not part of the previous plan.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and F, we've added so for solutions that were not initiated as capital projects yet, the projected timeline or a roadmap of like how the company would implement a solution for the forecast period. And then early on, we discussed about solution or potential solutions. So, you know, to the extent that a proposed solution would address more than one grid need, like maybe a reliability need was identified, but also the proposed solution would have resilience benefits, a description of that in 2. And then G, we've added cost effectiveness analysis. We discussed that cost effectiveness be part of the plan, but was not part of the reporting requirement. So we've included that as well.
Go ahead, Damon.
So despite my prior comment on cost effectiveness, I will pause on this one a little bit. And the rationale is because there are some solutions that don't warrant a cost effectiveness analysis. So if you have aging infrastructure, for example, you're going to replace it because it needs to be replaced because it's old and it's corroded or whatever the rationale. That doesn't need a cost effectiveness analysis. So I just want to make sure we're not creating needless work for certain aspects of the plan. So, you know, the as applicable language may be appropriate here, but that's the concern.
Okay, that's fair.
Thanks.
We've got Ethan and Jacob.
Mine just got fixed. Thank you, Damon.
All right, Jacob.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, again, so many different terms that have been used overlapping and interchangeably. So like later on in F1, we talk about what shall be included in the preliminary electric system plan. And so I thought what was here in B1 was supposed to be the things that were going to be included in a annual system update and or a published electric system plan. Basically the things that the utilities would report on every year, regardless of whether it was just an annual update or a full plan. And so one, I don't know if we need to tweak the language in the actual B.1, right? That kind of first sentence before the colon, but then also does F make sense here in terms of like what's being published every year, where E would be kind of like those updates that happen that would be, I think, would be talked about every year, but F may be only appropriate for the actual electric system plans. And hopefully that made sense. I know we're using a whole bunch of, like I said, overlapping terms and stuff, but trying to get that clarity.
Any updates? Solutions that may have changed.
I'll just jump in and say that I was
Please.
I was going to say what Jacob just said, that it seems that this is more about the annual reporting and updating and things. It's not just line 1 makes it sound like it's just for the quote unquote final plan. And the B itself says that's not what it's about. So I think we just have to clarify.
So Jacob, were you saying that we could get rid of F? Was that what you were suggesting, at least in part? I know you had a couple things in there.
Yeah, I think F is probably more specific to just when the company is doing the electric system plan than it would be an update. And I think that's already then captured in F.1 of this section in terms of what a utility would publish in its electric system plan.
All right. Samrit, what say you?
I'm not clear on the comment. So I think B says what should be included in the plan and then the annual updates. So not sure, Jacob, maybe you can help me. Did you want B to be only about the plan itself and not the updates, or just the updates?
Yeah, so F1 in this section talks about what the utilities would publish in their electric system plan, or technically it says preliminary electric system plan, but obviously that's then just the electric system plan. I think the intent of what B was trying to capture was what would the utility be publishing every year, regardless of whether they were only doing an annual update that year or whether they were doing a full electric system plan. And some of those things are lessons learned, process improvements, that narrative describing our processes, how they're changing, the roadmap for that, all those kind of things. I think we had identified even during the straw proposal process as things the utility would kind of communicate every year. And so I think B1 is trying to capture that kind of like core stuff that the utilities are going to talk about every year. And then the later piece in F would be talking about the specific things that would only be covered in the electric system plan.
Right. So how do you separate it out, I guess, is the question.
I think what I'm going to propose is just adding something to separate it into a 1 and 2. Meaning this one would be for electric system plan, and this would be for annual update. So let's just go through and pick off which one should be under which, and some will be under both.
Well, I guess then that list for the electric system plan will be duplicative of what comes later in the regulation then. And
all right, well, so
I guess my thought was, if we list, maybe we just frame this as what's provided in the annual system update, and then we add a line in the electric system plan regulation that says utility should publish everything from B1 in addition to all these other items for the electric system plan.
all right, that sounds good. I think so if I just call this annual electric system plan update, and then say you should include the following, and then we get rid of F, right? And G, because that goes.
Don't get rid of it, move it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would that also be under this? See, we're starting to, some of this capital solutions, we're starting to trip over each other with
Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, only one nuanced comment, which is I would appreciate avoiding the word capital. That's an accounting term. I mean, the solutions could be O&M projects too. They could be maintenance projects. So I think we should be careful. I think we should avoid use of capital. They're just the solutions or the projects or however we want to define it, but they're not just like capital projects.
Yeah, I would actually second that by referring back to the new definition proposed for the traditional wire solution, which I didn't mention earlier, but I was going to say even for that, we may not want to specify that it's like you could have rules where a capital project includes non-wire solutions, and that can be a way to address some of the misaligned incentives for those two types of projects. So I would agree with Damon on that one.
And,
all right,
and
well,
John, I would just put those in after H, not
yeah.
Let them.
Actually, it replaces H because it says the same. H says.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And just amplify that. Okay. Yep. Good. Okay.
And going back up to here, now that we're focusing on annual, is the lessons learned really just electric system plan? Because I think it's in there already. Is process improvements definitely.
Yeah, I think A and B are both kind of included in
Yeah,
part
they're
F,
fine.
but with slightly
Can we
different
just say,
language. than
process
part B.
lessons learned and process improvements, and not say previous plan cycle, because that implies electric system plan.
Go ahead, Damon. Just jump in.
Yeah, well, I just have a question here. So in terms of lessons learned and process improvements, I guess I would question why this is put in or listed as an electric company requirement as opposed to, this seems like that's of interest to all stakeholders. And maybe it's just building into the process an opportunity for anyone to provide lessons learned and process improvements opportunities. I just, again, it's more of a question than an immediate position, but it just seems odd that the burden is put on the electric companies to define those kinds of opportunities in the first instance, at least.
Lessons learned process.
I think process improvements, you've already got here.
Process.
Lessons learned. Yeah, lessons learned really occurs when you're developing the plan. So I would want to get rid of the whole thing here. And you have it here when you're talking about the preliminary plan, which.
And the commission can always
Yeah.
issue something on lessons learned after like the first cycle or so.
But
That's
I
where I
do think,
want to
I
draw it,
do
yeah,
think
because
you need this.
I'm sorry, Damon, what were you saying, sir?
I was agreeing with you. It seems
Oh.
recent practice has been to have a lessons learned proceeding in the aftermath of trying
Right.
something out. So
Right. All right. Go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
Just before we leave this section, I wanted to point out that down below in F, I think handled this the right way. The content of number 2 makes it parallel to number 1, but there's no action attached to it. Yeah, I would agree. That should be just item F.
Okay.
It's just another thing that's included.
Okay.
So are you talking about this F or another F?
No, that's
Yeah,
that one
no,
that you just.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
just go with
that's,
that.
that's correct. Yeah. And then what I was saying is that down below in section F, big F, it's captured that way. It's listed as one of the items that needs to be, there it is under as L, I think. Yeah. So that's correct. So it's just part of the list. Yeah. Okay.
Except we still
We haven't got there yet. Yeah. Right.
well, and also we had this targets.
And
I
yeah,
don't-
yeah.
Okay, so are we okay with B now?
I think so.
Hey, John, can I just raise a concern just generally? We've
Please.
made some really substantive changes in some of this that we're kind of going back and forth to other sections. And I worry that we're not getting a holistic view of how that changes impacts other sections. So, I mean, I know you wanted to be done, but I think maybe there needs to be one more review of the whole thing to just make sure they hold again. And we haven't just completely, confused things because we've just made big changes that weren't. This one in particular scares me. The other ones were like little wording changes and little changes that were contained, but this seems to be a pretty big, broad change.
No, I hear you, Andrea. The only thing I'm concerned about, I know John's concerned about it too, is the time, because we've got to submit this by next Thursday. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, May
I
1st.
just worry that we've now introduced, we had it pretty tight and now we're kind of maybe introducing some ambiguity or some internal inconsistency.
Right.
Andrea, I'm just hopping back over from the PC 44 meeting. Which section are you saying had big changes made to it? If you don't mind.
We just went through and kind of separated out plans. We can talk about it later, Crystal. I just worry that there have been such changes that there's now going to be inconsistency and ambiguity and injected in. That's all.
Go ahead, Damon.
yeah, I would suggest maybe just giving everybody like 2 days to submit cleanup items, non-substantive sort of cleanup items to Andrea's point. And then John and Judge, you can sort of figure out how to best use them, but just an opportunity. It'll save everybody time down the road. Because the last thing we want is to show up at a rulemaking and just say, you didn't insert the word "the" here. I mean, that's just a waste of everybody's time.
Right. I mean, that's not unreasonable, but like you suggested, Damon, it would have to be a real quick turnaround.
Sure.
All right, that's up to the judge.
Yeah. And of course, I'm not going to be here in 2 days, so it's not going to matter. I'm going to be off the rest of the week, but.
All right, data collection. Again, we had a whole section here, and there were a lot of changes suggested by Schmacko. So I'm going to take the green off of here. And oh.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in. I mean, I think hopefully the bubble comment is self-explanatory, but at the end of the day, we're questioning sort of the necessity here. The goal is to create discrete opportunities for stakeholder feedback, period. And so, I mean, stakeholders can provide whatever feedback they want. That's the point. Going down sort of data already collected seems, again, creating busy work that's unnecessary. It just seems at odds with this section, which is just to make sure that there are discrete opportunities for meaningful feedback and then ultimately reflection and incorporation.
I think number 2 is, again, examples, which we've gotten rid of in the past, but I would not want to get rid of number 1. I'm just suggesting that to you, Chuck.
Dave and Samarin.
Yeah, just for Potomac Edison, we had a comment on this section. Just it wasn't clear to us what was meant by discrete meeting points. Like, is that an actual meeting, or is that just an opportunity to provide feedback? I think we had suggested the language to be electric companies shall set a deadline for submission of stakeholder and customer inputs. It just made it wasn't clear here whether that was an actual meeting or it was just a kind of, as Damon said, to provide an opportunity to provide feedback.
So is it just the term meeting, just discrete point?
Yeah, I think discrete point clears it up a little. Yeah.
Or opportunity.
That would work.
We'd have to change that in other places too. In fact, did we have that? No. All right.
The company shall provide an overview of already.
So
go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, I'm not sure this matters as much to SMECO, but I'll at least throw it out there. It says to collect stakeholder and customer inputs. So they're at least being described here as 2 separate classes for receiving input. For us, we're going to go to our board. Our board has it represents our customers. So I don't think it's as matter to us, but I want to make sure in terms of drafting, is there a reason we're creating 2 different sets here?
I think it's a leftover from before we decided on what a stakeholder definition was.
Thanks, John.
So I agree. I think we should take that out because we've defined stakeholder. But I'm suggesting to you, Chuck, to not
keep 1, get rid of 2.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good.
So I'm going to do that down here because it's easier.
Go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
Oh, I just want to flag, I guess we're going to get to it a little later on. I raised this question about stakeholders because by creating the requirement that they essentially register as and become interveners, it makes it more limiting than I think we originally intended. And as I flagged the fact that I think Judge McLean back in the April 2024 report, we were still using the term stakeholder / public participant. the idea was that we wanted the opportunity for some level of public participation that might not necessarily be folks who rise to the intervener status, but still folks who might be want to be engaged or at least aware of the plan process. So what I raised later on was some opportunities to, for example, like a filing, but really a mailing with the bill that goes out to every customer, just saying we're having this plan development, and here's your opportunity to read. Go to the website and read it if you're interested, kind of thing. But we've lost the public participation dimension of it somewhat by defining stakeholders as registered interveners.
All right. Let's see, Andy and then Crystal.
Yeah, thanks. So I think similar to what Andrea mentioned about changes that we spent a fair amount of time on last meeting or previous meetings, changing them here at the last minute, I have pause around the changing discrete meeting point to, what did you just change it to, John?
Opportunity.
A discrete opportunity could be just as we kind of went around last time, where our suggested changes mirrored the FERC 1920 process to actually describe a publicly noticed forum to sort of discuss the assumptions and have like a series of 3 actual meetings. We kind of landed on discrete meeting point as like reflecting that we intend that to be a meeting versus I see opportunity for collecting feedback. Just you could say, email us your feedback and that's it. So just have hesitation on that and just wanted to voice that.
All right, Crystal, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I disagree with Al that the case should be open essentially to the public. I think that there's no way the utilities would be able to field a planning case that is open to anyone in terms of participating. I think that the public has a comment process, which is already made available for the public, but in terms of the case itself, it would be too complicated to have everyone qualify as an intervener.
Yeah, I wasn't proposing everyone as an intervener, but the fact that the universe of stakeholders gets fairly limited by the intervener requirement. But I at one point we were entertaining a very different vision of stakeholders, which has now become much more legalistic. But for example, one of the other things, if you look at the comment that I put in, one of the other things I suggested was, for example, that the utilities could interact with organizations that actually deal with community level, and I suppose even, municipal and other organizations that you would want to have participate, and see if there's a way to have them become interveners, but something of that's aimed at a little more than the usual limited attendance that one gets at a rate case.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I see Damon has his hand up, and I know he addressed it then. So I'm gonna pass the mic to Damon and let him restate his comment.
You're coming all garbled, Damon.
You're very perfect. Damon, can you hear us?
Your audio is pretty bad, sir.
You're getting an echo or something. Are you on 2 systems?
Sounds like you might need to jump back in a moment.
Oh, he's working on it. All right, we'll give him a second. Now you're still garbled. Now you're muted. All right, we'll come back. All right. Why don't we jump down to F there, John? All right, Dr. Bartlett.
Do I have something here? Hold on. Where are you? Are you now in F?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on a second. No, this is, yeah, this is where I made the comment about stakeholders and outreach to, for example, like notification when the annual plan report is sent out. Just, just so that you don't have to send the report to every customer, that would be expensive, but putting a notice in the bill that the annual report on grid planning has been filed in the website, that might be useful. I'm just thinking of ways to try to bring that public dimension into it without overloading the process.
I mean, do you have specific edits that you'd like to suggest?
Well, that not edits. Nope. What I suggested was, in John has transcribed my comment into the bubble, and it's this point about the fact that I'm afraid we've limited public participation, and just asking the group to think of ways that we can, to the greatest extent possible, preserve that broader participation expectation that I think is actually part of 7-801 through 804, but without overloading the process. But making everybody be a formal intervener is, I think, going to limit the process in ways that maybe we didn't intend.
Anyone want to weigh in? Go ahead, please.
So yeah, this is Doug Mikeel, PHI. Yeah, I'm just not certain. I mean, if you're thinking about a public hearing or public comment, that's fine. But in terms of the general public, and I use that not as the people on here, I'm not certain what expertise that they have in the area of distribution system planning. And we have a statute in Maryland where we have a representative for the residential customers. That's the Office of People's Counsel, and that's their statutory obligation to represent those customers. So, if you can't meet the intervention requirements of the statute, I'm not certain, what role you have in the play, quite frankly.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Doug.
I think that's exactly the problem. I think that, but for example, if you go to PUA 7-802, it talks about giving priority to vulnerable communities in the development of distributed energy resources and electric vehicle infrastructure. Having some voices from those communities would be worthwhile. I mean, OPC is wonderful, but depends, I guess, if you're a utility, not necessarily so much. That there is a specific intention to be more participatory than, again, like a rate case or something in this process, to reflect the opportunities and needs that various communities might identify by participating. It's not that they bring engineering expertise to it, but they do bring the experience of the grid, and if they become aware of what the possibilities are for grid improvement, they may have meaningful input, although it won't be technical necessarily. That was part of the intention, I think. So that's all.
I would just say that we have an obligation to serve all customers, and we serve all customers in a non-discriminatory manner, whether they're low to middle income customers or high income customers. Certainly we're interested in that benefit, but the things that we're doing on the system are designed to benefit all customers, irrespective of their socioeconomic conditions and considerations. And that's just been a bedrock of utility regulatory service for 100 years. And I don't think there's any indication that that we're not serving those customers and we're sensitive to them. And obviously we would consider projects in every area of the service territory if they were appropriate.
Yeah, and the issue is identifying those. Again, I'll just ask you to look back at 7-802 and see how that mandate, as well as transparent stakeholder participation in planning processes, both of those are in 7-802. So I'm not sure that we've exactly reached what the expectation there. That's all.
All right. Anybody else want to weigh in? I don't know that we're going to solve this. Obviously, we're not going to solve this today.
No, I'll just raise it.
All right. Thank you, sir. John, you still with us?
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So I guess we still need to hash out these timelines. I like to do that.
Yeah. So how much more are we almost on these regs, and then we can get the timeline?
Yeah. Actually, this is the last.
Okay,
item.
good. All right. So we should be okay on that.
Yeah, this may versus shall. I again, the commission.
I'd make it a may.
Yeah, I don't think the commission can regulate itself. It's not self-regulating like. Okay, so we'll get to the days. So this is the last item. Electric companies' consideration of feedback, and this is raises supplant what is currently in here, and it's from Exelon.
Yeah, I can speak to it, John. Recognizing a lot of the conversations we were having last time about the commission order and timing that, and whether we can, direct them to do something or not within the regulation, and recognizing some of the challenges around when will we get an order, obviously, if we're not necessarily directing the commission, just trying to kind of remove that piece from the regulation, just given all that discussion, and just kind of clearly identify that, within a set period, which we have here is within the 90 days of the technical conference, the utilities would publish on their website and distribute those responses. And so instead of trying to build this timeline around a commission order and whenever that may happen, just kind of scrapping that and just anchoring it around the timing of the technical conference. And so that was what these recommendations were.
All right, so let me go back up to what we originally had because it's easier. I do agree.
It's actually pretty. It looks like it's consistent.
Yeah. All right, let me just so it's easier to read this. I don't have a problem with deleting number 1. The commission will decide on its own what it's going to do about an order. And I agree decoupling the order from the response to feedback is probably a good idea. But that's just my opinion, Chuck. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now we kind of come back to this filing and publishing or publishing and filing.
Yeah, that I'm not so. I really feel like there needs to be a final plan somewhere in the docket after all is said and done.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. But then it's just 90 days after the technical conference. So I guess, Jacob, how would I know the commission's not necessarily approving these plans, or I don't know what they're going to do with them. But how would you respond to say if you? But you know what? Never mind. Forget. I'll stop talking. Yeah, go ahead, please.
We had previously discussed having the commission acknowledge them like they do in the reliability hearings.
Right.
And I think that was where the commission landed,
Okay.
but my memory may be failing at this point.
So I'm going back to the original. The commission may provide an order noting the plan.
Thank you, John. That's the language.
Okay. Now we gotta say what kind of plan it is.
Yeah. The well, it's only the preliminary electric system plan at this point.
What-
Yes.
yeah.
Um, and they may address other things in the order.
Okay.
But I don't know how to write that.
But I think that's where we had recommended just scrapping I1, right? Obviously, in our piece it shows A there, but just scrapping that piece in total, again, acknowledging that the commission timing wise and what they
Right.
want to include there will be.
But you can't have it both ways. You can't have a request that the commission note the plan and then not provide an order, because that's where they're going to note the plan. So I could agree to get rid of the within 60 days.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna know that it's gonna be a hot top. That they're gonna have to move on these things.
They could provide direction.
Right. So are we gonna get rid of 4 then?
Well, I don't know. I haven't.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get to that a little bit later. So electric company shall evaluate any feedback. I don't think they change that.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
So we added what stakeholder proposals are considered. Or evaluated would be the process of what would be considered, which stakeholder feedback would be considered, right? So I'm in I4.
I don't. I4. Where's that?
Not sure if you're there, but electric companies' consideration of feedback.
You're right there, John. Within 60 days.
Oh, okay.
But they got rid of the staff wants to get rid of the 60 days. It just says within 90 days of the annual technical conference. Is that right?
No, I think we just wanted to change evaluated to considered. Not sure if our comment was about the number of days, but so we just wanted to change will be evaluated to considered or not considered.
All right. So you just want to replace A with this wording.
Right. I would probably delete will be considered in the development of the plan or not considered instead of like not evaluated in A.
Or not considered here.
Correct. Yeah.
I think we should get rid of this within just leave it within 60 days of a commission order.
I think, John, the reason we had recommended, not connecting it to the commission order and, our language was just within 90 days of the technical conference, as we recommended below, was if there's no set timeline for when the commission will release an order, the utilities are just left waiting on an unknown timeline for us to be able to execute and move forward with these plans. And so really wanting to give kind of a concrete timeline for when we're responding to stakeholders. Obviously, when the commission releases an order, we'll be responsive to it as, we would be, but just really giving us a concrete timeline to move forward with.
All right. I would get rid of commission orders here because you might not have one.
I would think you're going to have something, though.
Well, that's Jacob's argument for decoupling them.
Right. And I think we had recommended removing that as well.
That's fine.
But like I said, obviously if the commission releases an order, we will be responsive to it, but
if feasible.
Yeah.
And it's applicable.
That's only when you're on the commission, Chuck.
Go ahead, Damon.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I tried a different approach here. So no, I agree with what Jacob said. I mean, I think to the extent you want to link it to the commission, I would just say, or as otherwise directed by the commission. But if we're going to make the issuance of an order discretionary, it seems completely at odds to then link any timeline to a commission order. So I would only link a timeline to discrete events that are going to be in the regulations, and then certainly can put as otherwise directed by the commission or something like that.
All right. Well, I think this does that now. In fact, I don't even know why we need an A here because we got rid of B. So
there you go.
Utilities okay?
Okay. Oh, I thought that was staff.
I think the only other edit that we had was if we add in some of that proposed language that we had in 4 where I guess you could tweak the language within 4 to be able to eliminate 5 if you include publishing on the website and distributing to stakeholders,
shall file, maybe companies shall file and publish responses to stakeholder feedback.
I think I want to use the same wording we used above. The response should be published on the website, but also be filed in the docket.
That's fine, but just saying, I think that language could be added to 4.
Yeah.
Instead of it being a whole separate line.
Yeah, let me go up though, grab the language.
Hey, Damon, you saw your hand up. Are you good?
I am good, thank you.
All right.
Sorry. Hand down.
Where did I use that language about docket? Oh. All right, I didn't go for
There
it.
you go. Oh, there you go. Right there.
First, I'm going to do it here, Jacob. Then I'll try to. Merge 4 and 5. Well, it's clumsy because it's a lot to put in here. Publish on the website within 90 days. So you got to put shall You gotta put this publish on the website up here, shall,
Electric company's responses shall be filed.
on its website,
Or you publish on the website, you file on the docket.
and file a response to stakeholder feedback. Then it's like, does that work?
The company shall publish on its website and file a response to stakeholder feedback.
I think that works on initial read.
All right,
All right.
so I'm gonna get rid of this. All right, so now we're just dealing with the days, the different, make sure we do a sanity check on the timeline.
All right.
So I'm gonna go back up at the top. So, first is file an electric system plan annual update no less than.
Don't we have isn't there an Excel spreadsheet, John?
Yeah, I was hoping to avoid that.
Oh, sorry.
Because there's 3 or 4 different.
Yeah, I know. All right. No, I will defer to you.
I think people can refer to the spreadsheet, but I'd like to get it in the regs
Very good.
personally.
All right.
So is everyone okay with following the annual electric system planning update no less than 60 days prior to the technical conference? All right. So I'm going to accept that. All right. So the next time we get the days is, again, so we duplicated that here, so I can delete this here, because this is talking about a preliminary electric system plan. Well, no, we didn't. This was the annual update. This is the preliminary electric system plan. So 60 days is consistent with the other thing. So that looks right to me. Comments shall be filed by stakeholders no less than 30 days prior to the annual. So they've got 60 days prior. So they've really only got 30 days to review and file comments. That's probably only good enough for one set of discovery.
Well, no, because they can obtain discovery within 90 days. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that doesn't.
Yeah, these don't line up.
Well, if they know when they're going to file it, you could get 90 days before that, right? Within 90 days of the publication. You read it like that?
I actually feel like this would only work if this was 90 days up here instead of 60.
How do you do discovery if you haven't seen the plan?
Well, well, I know we had talked at one meeting of like having a type of a standard data request that, that something similar to OPC and staff have in rate cases.
Yeah, I think at least as we've been thinking about the timeline, as we had kind of proposed that, as we've talked about, like, this is already a very compressed and challenging timeline. And so as we were thinking about the annual technical conference happening in August, really end of June is where we felt like, we could publish the annual updates or the DSP plans, which is really kind of that then 60-day window between the technical conference, or between publishing and the technical conference.
Yeah, I just don't think you can really within 60 days do appropriate discovery. I think you need at least Because you're asking them to file 30 days prior to the annual conference. So that only, if you start with 60 days, you know, that only leaves 30 days for them to ask.
What about make it 75? That's a compromise.
I guess I'd rely on staff and OPC.
Go ahead, Ethan.
I just, would like to remind people that this was never meant to be a litigated proceeding, and the amount of discovery is beginning to, we aren't trying to reinvent the rate case here. We're trying to provide opportunities for stakeholder engagement and transparency, and within a year's time frame, this is going to require some compromise. And so I'm not sure how much we can actually do and execute at the same time.
But the model that was thrown out there was the reliability conference model, and there you generally have 90 days. Actually, you have more than 90 days in that particular case.
But does it have 3 opportunities for stakeholder engagement leading up to it? I mean, we've got multiple points for transparency. I know people want more, but
Well, I'm not going to fight the battle for staff and OPC. I don't hear them commenting, so.
Well,
I'm just concerned we may not be able to get to the end of the first year.
Well, all right. Hold on, Damon, and then Samarit.
Yeah, this is Damon. So I guess just one comment here, a question really. So, I mean, I want to make sure we're differentiating between the annual update process and the planned cycle process, because it seems to me, I mean, they are different, and the sort of the necessary discovery and or filing timeline may be a little bit different. Certainly, I would expect individuals to have more questions with respect to the plan cycles as opposed to the annual updates, but maybe I'm wrong.
That's fair. Samarit.
I think as staff agrees with OPC's proposed 90 days for discovery period. Just wanted to say that on the record. Thanks.
Well, see, what I was recommending was halfway, providing you 60 days. Because again, if they're filing it 60 days before the annual technical conference and you have to file your comments 30 days prior, that only leaves you 30 days. And I'm just arguing 60 days, not 90 days discovery.
Right.
Should we make the comments filed by the parties, 15 days before the annual technical conference? I'd give everyone 2 weeks to prep for it.
Yeah, that's probably okay, because that's what's done. Typically in the reliability conference, it's like 2 weeks before.
Damon and then Jo.
So I could do that.
Yeah, I apologize. I may have had a residual hand up.
That's all right.
But I have a thought. I have a thought now. So
I knew you
I'll
would.
add it to the conversation. I think that, when you think about planning for a proceeding like this, certainly time is of a concern, and largely, or in many respects, depending upon how many intervening parties, how many stakeholders we will have participate in the process. If you have 100 stakeholders, I'm sorry, but it's going to be very difficult for any utility, and certainly SMECO, to respond in a timely manner to the amount of questions that would come with that many stakeholders. So what might be helpful is to at least put a cutoff date. If we're going to start to define deadlines, no discovery can be served after a certain date or something like that, which is common in litigated proceedings. So at least we have assurance that there is an end.
Yeah, but I think the cutoff date is really up to the stakeholder filing.
I mean, if they can't get the responses in within the time to include it in their filing. Mr. Auslander.
Thanks, Chuck. OPC thinks that discovery is going to be a very important part of this process. The stakeholders are going to be learning about the utilities distribution systems. We're going to be learning about their planning processes. So we support, a long discovery period. And in fact, we've said in in previous comments that we think OPC and staff and MEA should be able to serve discovery related to DSP at any time on an ongoing basis.
Right. Damon, you got your hand up again?
I do, legitimately this time. And so my response is, or one thing I do want to say, and I've said this before, but I want to make 100% certain that discovery is a two-way street. In other words, certainly the utilities will have the right to serve discovery on whether it's OPC, a Sierra Club, or any stakeholder as part of these proceedings, because we need the opportunity to evaluate stakeholder comments too. They're not always clear on their face.
And OPC would agree to accept discovery at any time and open-ended, just like we would have. We don't have any problems with it being symmetrical, Damon.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd have a problem. I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, but the 14-day turnaround isn't going to be helpful to utilities. If the stakeholders are filing 14 days prior to the hearing, you're going to get one shot at discovery.
I think that's right, and that was to my point. I want to make sure we have ample opportunity. Well,
yeah. So I don't know that 14 days will work.
I would like to get rid of the timing with the whole discovery and just leave it like that. And just focus on the following deadlines. That's what I'm suggesting.
Andy's asking if the 90-day discovery meant to the preliminary system plan filing, not just the final plan.
Yeah, these are docketed cases. There's an ability to obtain discovery.
Well, now I guess Andy, is your question? Can you just?
Yeah, just looking at part B. Looking at part B, I'm just seeing how it says, "How shall have the opportunity to obtain discovery within 90 days of publication of an ESP and a plan update."
Where's part B?
It's under the comments that we were just on, where we changed it to 14 days. Oh, did it already get changed?
Oh, that big.
Okay, it already got changed on the version I'm looking at. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Never mind.
I would think you'd be able to start asking discovery as soon as the plan's published.
So
draft plan, at least the preliminary, I should say.
Yeah.
The updates make it a little tougher.
Really, at these feedback opportunities, they could possibly, like when they have the opportunity to discuss the data, there could be discovery after that. So I just feel like discovery is just the ability to do that in a docketed case, really exists for all granted interveners anytime.
I think the 14 days is going to have to increase though.
Well, this is just their comments.
Right. So OPC staff, whoever files comments 14 days prior to the annual technical conference, but the utilities will literally only be able to get probably one round of.
Well, if we pattern it after the reliability conference, the comments are filed about 2 weeks before, and in that case, the utilities really, just address that like live rejoinder at the hearing.
Sure. No, I hear you. I hear you. Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, I think it's very different in this case as compared to the reliability. We're talking more like Empower here. We're not talking about the reliability. We're talking about stakeholders offering opportunities to shift the direction of a plan, including potential, projects. That's going to require a much more in-depth investigation by the utilities than would be the case in the annual reliability plan, where we're just talking about performance metrics. It's very different.
We talk about reliability plans in CN 9353 too.
But it's not to this level, at least.
And the commission did in its order sort of use the reliability conference as a model. So,
Well, I would recommend a continuous improvement opportunity here. And suggest a realistic timeline for us to make this a meaningful process. Which
Well,
I'd
you
say-
already skipped your, you already skipped the co-op's participation past my retirement date. So what do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal here is to make this an iterative process and to
Yeah.
Ethan, Jacob's, I can't remember his point, that it should be, I mean, yeah, there's going to be some contention, no doubt, based upon this work group. But at the same time, the goal, and at least I'm speaking from SMECO, is we welcome feedback. We look forward to feedback, and we want an opportunity to reflect and investigate it. And if we have too short a duration, that's not going to be a meaningful exercise.
Yeah.
Well, I think to, I guess, add to that, Damon, I mean, I think, an important differentiation between this and Empower is, the Empower plans are approved plans, right, prior to the utilities executing these, right? This, as we've talked about, as the commission identified, these DSP plans aren't necessarily there to be approved by the commission at these hearings, right? These are plans that we're providing additional transparency for and adding additional opportunities for that stakeholder feedback. But the utilities still ultimately bear the responsibilities for them. And so I think it is slightly different from Empower in that way. And I think, wanting, as Ethan said before, there's several opportunities throughout the process where we're engaging with them, creating that transparency, getting that feedback. So that way, by the time that we're filing those plans, there should already, I think, hopefully be a lot of awareness and education that's there. And I think we also have the opportunity to respond to stakeholder comments in what we file after the technical conference. And so I think there's certainly, an opportunity for the utilities to provide feedback back to the stakeholders at that point as well.
So I'm not sure where we ended up.
I think
I'll
I'm
say-
regretting offering the 14 days as a compromise.
Say that.
I'm
again.
regretting offering 14 days as a compromise because I just think that makes discovery on the utility side
Right, so we'll go
extremely
back to
difficult.
30, but then I think you need to change this.
What about 75 and 30?
I mean, I'll just say I recognize that desire to have that balanced discovery, but this is already, as we've kind of outlined in the timeline we had said, already a very extended process, right? And
No, I
trying
get it. I get it.
to have the utilities file those plans even earlier starts to become, an additional challenge.
What do we say then here? Okay, so it's really just this. Chuck, you make the final call, and then everybody can.
Well, everybody's unhappy.
Everybody can disagree with it when they file with the commission.
What do we say? And this is just for the updates, right?
For both the updates and the preliminary electric system.
So we're
plan.
going to have the same.
Yeah, I know Damon was making a case for maybe changing that, and I'm not sure all the other utilities.
I mean, does anybody have any suggestions right now? I feel like I'm just me and John throwing these days out, trying to be fair to everybody. Go ahead, Samra.
So I'm concerned about the 30 days. So if yes, so that would just leave us 30 days for discovery.
Okay, all right. I get your concern. Suggestions, fixes.
So
That's what we
90
need.
days. 90 days would work. That would give us 60 days for comments. If that would be my suggestion.
All right, Ethan.
I'd like to remind people once again that this is not meant to be a litigated proceeding and that execution of our DSPs is most important.
Understood.
Right now, I'm hearing that we're going to spend, I don't know how much time, frankly, in discovery, going back and forth. And well, that's it.
I hear you. I don't know that we
I'm
actually
gonna-
agreed. I know I know what OPC and MEA and staff were suggesting, this kind of ongoing discovery. I don't know that we actually agreed on that. I know you guys didn't agree on that.
I remind them that OPC, MEA, and staff that they will be part of the rate case, and that this is not this proceeding is intended for non-technical stakeholders.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Jonah and then Samarit.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag that, earlier when we were talking about the data that we'll get that is part of this proceeding, we were saying that a lot of this data is going to be potentially needing to be gathered through data requests and through discovery. And so, if given the fact that we've veered off of the path of having data reported through this docket, it really enhances the importance of having a robust discovery process, because we decided not to go with.
You dropped off there, sir.
Utilities don't want to go with a process where we collect all. Oh, sorry. Just the idea that if we're going to have a process where we have to rely heavily on data requests and discovery in order to get metrics, because we're leaving everything in other dockets, and we're potentially having to issue standardized data requests in order to understand what's going into these DSPs. It makes it all the more important to have a robust discovery process, given that earlier path we decided, or some of us are interested in.
Jonah, he's with OPC, Ethan. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, so that was the.
All right, appreciate it. All right, John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I'm just feel like this is just a point where we just need to put a number in and let.
You know what? Let's just split the difference. I know it's not going to make anybody happy, but just make it 75 days instead of 60, and then we can argue about it later. Folks can argue about it later.
I would offer that it should be here, so.
Very well. Make it so.
And then, we'll just have to hash this out with the commission, but that's pretty much it. We'll have to mess around with this a little bit.
Sure.
And, this was just a change. I don't think this was in dispute.
Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, one point of caution, to the extent it's a point of caution, I think based upon this timeline, if I'm reading it correctly, there will be years where utilities have to file both the annual update and their preliminary plan at the same time. Is that right?
No, I think that
wouldn't it encompass?
Yeah, when you have to file a preliminary plan, it sort of includes your annual update. It shouldn't be duplicative.
Okay, is that clear? Because I looked at the annual plan as looking backwards. I mean, some degree looking forward too, but sort of where you're at, but what you've accomplished. Whereas the plan is forward looking, obviously.
Yeah, I think there are things that are in the electric system plan that are duplicative with what's in the annual update. Maybe we need to make that clearer here that
yeah, I would agree with Damon saying it's annual is probably a little bit of both. Saying this is what we've done, this is what we're hoping to do going forward. This is how we've tweaked it.
So what do I do, Chuck?
Can it just be in the year in which an electric company files a preliminary electric system plan? It is not required to also file an annual update plan. I mean, something that simple, or if it's going to be encompassing.
So I would add item 3 here.
And I have no idea what I just said, so, so I've already forgotten.
The other electric company files a preliminary electric system plan. an annual electric system plan update is not required.
Something like that. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
A lot of plans.
A lot of plans.
Okay.
Does anybody have any concerns with that?
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to get rid of the spacing. All right. Chuck, you want to talk about next steps?
Sure. I know Andrea had suggested or asked for maybe a 2-day turnaround just to try and clean some things up. Mr. Cathan, how are you?
I am fine. This is David Cathan, Sierra Club, and I apologize for coming in late to the meeting. I had a previous meeting, and I was involved in the interconnection work group, which is happening at the same time also, as John well knows. And it was just noted, I wasn't there for the discussion back in 03, number 6, which was one of reference to the wholesale. And I just wanted to know what was the result? Where are we on that?
I don't know that we really talked about it because you were not here, but
We did talk about it. We just left it as it is.
Yeah. So
all right. The only question I just, wasn't the order said that they, should require coordination, and is that consistent with the term shall consider?
Utilities shall require coordination.
It's an order 91490.
Right. All right, I'm just pulling up the order.
And that was deleted text that was in the one that was sent out earlier.
Right. Okay, so if I'm talking about the same thing, sir, I think I'm looking at the top of page 5, PJM interconnection DERQ. Is that the item you were talking about, sir?
Actually, let me. Sorry. I was more looking at. I had not pulled up the order. I was really pulling out the quote that was in the deleted text.
Sure.
That was sent out. Page 4, page 5, paragraph 4.
Okay. Yeah. Work group agreed that the utilities will consider DERs that will be participating in the PJM wholesale markets and distribution planning.
And that's what I think this says.
If that's the language, I thought it was should require coordination.
When you look at the whole language in the order, the piece that was crossed out in terms of should require coordination, just one piece of the whole paragraph under 4 in the order. And so I think we were recommending, as you look at that paragraph in 4, the utilities consider DERs that will be participating in the PJM wholesale market and distribution planning. That first sentence kind of effectively captures that point, and that's what is reflected here now in regulation.
And I think what Mr. Cathan's referring to is the last sentence of that paragraph. It says regulations should require coordination between utilities and PJM. I'll just cut and paste that.
And let me just give you the reason why. I'm happy that language here shall consider. I'm concerned that that shall consider is weak, and that there will be situations where there will be how these activities are happening at the distribution level will impact the wholesale and vice versa. And there absolutely needs to be coordination, and that actually is included in the most recent order. There was discussion of need for coordination that was just issued on 22/22. So I want to keep this as a live issue.
Sure.
And that's-
No. What if we, and you missed the whole feasible, applicable conversation. What if we say utilities shall coordinate, instead get rid of consider and put in coordinate, and then at the end, if feasible, if applicable,
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Now I don't know if the utilities are okay with that.
Yeah, and I think I dropped in the chat the full thing from the order, right? And the first sentence is the work group agreed that the utilities will consider.
Right. Yeah, and right above that is the last sentence in that paragraph, Jacob.
Right.
Right. Subjective.
So I guess I think we're still supportive of what was originally there as reflecting what the intent of what the working group agreed to.
Right. But it seems like the commission at least took it a step further to require the coordination. Would you agree with that?
Well, I guess this is just describing the work group report, not necessarily the commission decision, right? Or in terms of where it is in the order, I guess.
Well, now you're getting really technical.
Well, yeah, but this is the draft regulation.
Commission appreciates, accepts it with, okay, so they accepted the consensus item, but it certainly seems like if we didn't have that, the coordination requirement in the report, then the commission clearly added that. Right? I'd have to go back and look at the report.
Okay.
Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I'm confused a little bit about what we're coordinating. I mean, we're certainly not coordinating the dispatch. Like, what are we just saying, hey, PJM, can we talk? And if they say no, I guess they're not going to talk to us. Or, like, what are we doing there?
That just seems rude.
Well, it just, I'm coming from, this is a big issue that took up 60 pages of Order 22/22 with coordination between the utilities and the RTOs on operations of, VPPs, especially if they're going to be aggregated and participate in PJM. At the very least, for DSPs, the operation of a VPP will impact the operations at the local level of how the system will be operated. So there needs to be some level of coordination and between or at least communication, and that's important going forward as DERs increase and as VPPs, whether they're wholesale or retail, they will have an impact on both systems.
And I guess I would just, I like the as applicable because there's a question as to whether that order is applicable to SMECO for one. And there's also, there was a recent VPP order that was issued by the commission, and we have reports due in 6 months or 5 months or whatever it is now. So
I'm okay with the language. I would say shall consider and coordinate as applicable. I just want to make sure that it reflected what the commission was saying. I'm okay with this language as it is right now.
All right. Okay. And any last thoughts, Chuck?
Wait, so are we keeping it as it is?
Well,
and coordinate as applicable. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. No, I'd like to try and wrap it up before anybody else jumps on. So
they're all looking down in the interconnection workroom. Hurry up.
So yeah, well, do you want me to draw this out so you don't have to go back? All right. So Andrea had suggested a quick 2-day turnaround for cleaning up type changes, consistency, things like that, because we made some pretty significant changes. Just had some back and forth with John over email. I think we could do that. So if you have any suggestions, again, just purely consistency type stuff, have those to John and I no later than close of business on Thursday.
Actually, what I was going to
Oh,
recommend
okay.
Chuck, is getting you the clean version to send out tomorrow
Oh, okay.
and give them to the end of the week, because I'm not going to do anything with it.
Oh, you're so nice. All right.
And over the weekend.
Okay.
So, but it would be end of the week.
Okay. All right. Close business Friday.
Right.
Could that go, I'm sorry, could that go with some clear instructions about limits on, I mean, Judge McLean just made the comment about consistency. Okay, what do we mean? If people start rewriting things again and we don't.
No, we're not. No, we're not rewriting things. Like one of the suggestions Andrea had was, or maybe it was Crystal, doing a wholesale change utility to electric company, because we don't use utility throughout the.
Right.
Yeah.
Or correct any errors.
Yeah.
If there's any obvious errors that need to be corrected, but no rehashing.
Okay.
So you'll have a chance to rehash everything, when you follow.
Yeah, no. I wasn't looking to rehash it. I just want to make sure that people were clear when you send this out to 148 people or something, what it is you're asking them to do.
Yeah, just purely cleaning up, nothing substantive.
Great.
Okay.
Is that it?
For today.
Yeah.
Unless we can get a few more of those interconnection work group people.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we better close down now. Listen, I just wanted to personally say thank you to both of you guys for shepherding us through this, and congratulations to Judge McLean on his appointment as commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We keep you for a couple of months left, I guess. Does that, maybe you'll take us through the metrics section?
Yeah,
That would be great.
July 1st. Yeah, I've been holding back on the metrics. I really want to dive in on that starting July 1st.
Yeah, I'm sure you can't wait, right?
Yeah, thank you all. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.